Welcome to The Connection Code, a podcast where we explore the relationships that make your life and work just a little bit better.
I'm Jeana Anderson-Cohen. I spent 13 years building a sweat life, which is a business that uses health and wellness to trick adults into making friends. And I'm also building a social gathering and event space in New Buffalo, Michigan called Petite Acres. So I am obsessed with friendship and gathering.
And being so busy. I am Rachel Rachel. I lead a PR firm called 3PR, focused on healthy food brands, and I also love bringing people together for friendship and work opportunities. So today is a very special episode. We invite my best friend and sister on, Laura Engelbret, as a guest. And in honor of today's very special conversation, I wanted to, Jeana, dive in with our big question, which I think we often lead with the positive. And I think it's healthy to sometimes explore the negative. So tell me about a time when you've had a connection fail, or a connection has been ridden with conflict or just not seamlessly clicked and you had to adapt accordingly.
So, Rachel, this is such a good question because I think both you and I are positive Pollies and we always find the bright side. and when we started thinking about this, I want to kind of kick off with the lesson from my failed connection because I'm still going to be a positive Polly about it. The lesson I learned from this failed connection is that you can't make yourself fit in every environment, and you can't find all of your happiness at work, and sometimes any of your happiness at work. So for me, I started my career sort of post Obama campaign, working in agencies. And it was pretty clear after my first foray in an intern room that the actual structural corporate environment where you climb a ladder, you have your emails read and approved before you send them to people, and you work for a year and a half and then maybe have your promotion approved, that I would wither up on that vine and die. and so I wanted so badly to fit, because my version of success that I'd sort of been working against was like, I'll be VP by 30 was the sort of mantra I had in my head, VP by 30, VP by 30. By the way, I had completely dropped out of it by 30. That's okay. Well, I will tell my younger self that later. But I worked a series of jobs in agencies where each one of them kind of gave me another clue that either the environment wasn't a fit for me, or that structure wasn't a fit for me, or it wasn't a place where I could be happy. But that's not to say that you don't sometimes need to work jobs where you, and I hate even saying this because #capitalism, but like sometimes you got to work jobs where you're unhappy because you have to wait for the next opportunity to come along. Or sometimes you're working on something else outside of that job, and the financial support of the job gives you what you need for the thing outside of the job. So it was sort of, I needed to figure out how to buckle down and be happy outside of work. So as it goes, I worked in a few different corporate environments and had a couple of stops along the way where I've learned important lessons. For example, like I got pulled onto a new business pitch on one of my early agency jobs, and new business for anyone who's ever worked in an agency is an honor. It is yes. Hours and hours. You know, Rachel, like you get put on new business.
And you're chosen to be on a new business team, you feel like you have been selected and you go really hard into adding value to that team. So I fully understand your mindset.
Yeah, and you're probably working an extra 4 hours a day with no extra pay, but it is an accolade. It is whispered in the hall. She's working on new business. But meanwhile, I didn't really my fault. I didn't ask a ton of questions. I was just like, I'm good at public speaking. And also I wasn't given a ton of prep. I was sort of thrown into this new business pitch. I felt really good about it. We worked as a team. We prepared as a team. We didn't win that particular new business pitch, my first ever. And at this happy hour, because we'd had to travel for it, at this happy hour after the pitch, this gentleman who was probably like 29 or 30 at the time, but to me, he was like a seasoned vet of the agency pulled me aside and he said, you know why I think we didn't win that pitch? And I was like, why? and and he looks my little baby eyes in the face and he says, you. and,
Oh my
and
God.
yeah, and I remember just being like crushed and also internalizing like, oh my God, we didn't win that pitch because of me. I am failing. I have failed. When in reality, the lesson like older me has been able to internalize and take away is like, maybe I fed into the loss, but also a good team would have sat down together, debriefed, and talked about what we could have done better. Like, what did we learn? What was the feedback that they gave us? How could we have improved? Instead of cornering a tiny baby girl and telling her it was her fault.
Jeana,
you know?
I'm so horrified. First of all, kudos to you that you did learn this lesson over time. And I think it takes multiple attempts sometimes to really internalize something we need to realize. And it's not easy, especially in our 20s. But in no way should a 20-something ever be blamed for losing a new business pitch. And
Right?
that should not sit on your shoulders. And I hope that he's had his own reckoning.
I'm sure he has. I follow him on social media. I know he's a father now. Like, you know, I feel like he's probably either completely forgotten about it and never thought about it once, or would be horrified to learn of it and remember it. Because people are generally pretty good, in my opinion. But then I left that agency to follow sort of a senior executive to a startup, which was what I was craving, that autonomy, that excitement, that risk. And the startup I worked at is now like worth a few $1 billion. They're called Marquetta. I'm happy saying their name because I'm very happy for them and the founding team. However, they pivoted their direction 6 months into my tenure there. And if you know anything about equity, generally startup equity vests at a year. There's a cliff. So my equity did not vest. So I'm very happy for them. But every time I see an earnings announcement or like new valuations, I'm like, don't do the math. But that gave me almost like an aversion to risk, a big swing back into like, oh, obviously that wasn't right. The risk wasn't right. I got to stay on this ladder, safety and security. So I went to the most corporate agency I could find, and worked in I was very unhappy, cried at my desk for like 6 months and, worked really hard to try to fit in there and to be happy there. And then I realized like, I just was not going to find happiness there. And so in order to put myself in a position to find a new job, I knew I needed to get happy. So like I needed
Which is
to find,
also a huge insight, to prioritize your personal happiness as a means of finding a new career direction.
I have to express gratitude for the timing because it was also aligned with Gretchen Rubin's book, The Happiness Project, coming out. So I saw the title, didn't read the blurb or the jacket, just sort of had like this sounds like what I need. And I instituted some of her hacks, some of her like habits for more happiness. And it just so happened that one of her habits for happiness is movement. And it just so happens that spurred on this idea to try new workouts every week. And it just so happened that led me to a sweat life, which pulled me out of my funk. Some may call it depression, and into like a new life.
I mean, talk about a book changing your life, but
Yeah.
it's an amazing story, an arc of failed connections. And I don't say that lightly, but these moments that didn't quite work or these people that didn't make you feel at home or accepted, ultimately nudging you towards entrepreneurial life and then doing what has made you so much more fulfilled.
Yeah, I mean, I should be so lucky to have those lessons in my back pocket. You know, Rachel, tell me about your failed connection.
I mean, we have chatted about this. I can be a ruminator, and I have thought about this a lot and how to take a really hard experience and be grateful for the silver lining of what I learned from it. Very difficult to do when it's raw, but much easier with hindsight. So to copy you, the lesson is that you can't force fit connection. And sometimes when you recognize a cultural misalignment, you're the fish out of water. Instead of trying to swim harder, you should go find a different pool of water. So this was my job where I was met not with like an enthusiastic response or sort of a welcome aboard, but I felt a lot of initial hesitation of why did we hire for this role? We've never had this role before. I just came into the job feeling as though I really had to prove something as opposed to being welcomed with open arms and a sense of enthusiasm that I was part of the team. So that might have been sign number one. But I think when you are in a situation where you realize fairly early that you're not connecting and you're not clicking, you can either leave or you can adapt and change yourself to fit in. And unfortunately, I chose the latter, and I just really wanted to be liked. Kind of going back to Alicia Menendez and our conversation about being liked and being respected and how to balance that seesaw. I was like, respect will come later. If they could just like me, I could find my way into this company culture, then maybe I could do some good things. But it was not meant to be. I ignored a lot of red flags. I compromised things about myself I didn't love and put up with treatment that didn't feel good in service to this idea that I could be a real member of this team. And so, big surprise, it didn't work out and went fairly badly. And then you walk away, and I know that I felt a big, glaring, shameful sense of self afterwards. Like, how could I not make this work? How come everywhere else I've gone, I've been able to contribute and feel good about my role, and this place, it just imploded. But I think, again, the upside of a connection fail, the takeaway from it, with some therapy and distance, is that it was so jarring that it helped me reimagine my career path. And after I moved out of a place that wasn't healthy, I was able to say, well, what do I want to do professionally? How do I want to feel? What kind of people do I want to surround myself with? And what kind of impact do I want to have professionally and personally? So if I hadn't gone through something that was such a failed connection and such a disappointment in terms of not feeling part of something, I wouldn't have started my own business. And that is where I felt the most at home and the greatest sense of belonging. So I know we're going to dive into so much with my sister, and I think she has such a powerful example of literally being a fish out of water and embracing a new culture and having it not work initially. But I don't know, I think sometimes it's so easy to be like, this connection success and this wonderful thing, but it's worth taking a moment to reflect on the things that did not pan out.
So what's so interesting, Rachel, is you talk about fish out of water in such an interesting way. I'm actually on a tab looking up the name of the Second City teacher, but so fish out of water is a very common trope for like movies, stories, comedy. And I took a Second City intensive with this teacher and writer. She has written like NBC shows. Their name's Jay Stegman, and she referred to fish out of water as a storytelling vehicle as two possible outcomes. So like either the fish changes the world or the world changes the fish.
Ooh.
Yeah, but you did give a nice third option, which is the fish leaves the world. But
Jeana, let me give you the most concrete version of this. It's a clothing situation, but it sort of applies.
yeah.
I wore high heels and everybody else was in sneakers. It was like I showed up with sort of my PR office culture, like I'm going to dress up and wear a heel and be professional. And what I walked into was from like top to bottom, a completely different feel down to the way that people dress for comfort and functionality. So, you can sort of aesthetically recognize maybe what I'm bringing to the table is not what everybody else is wanting to receive. So fish out of water. I like this third path, perhaps. Maybe you need to go find your own pool of water.
Yeah. But was there ever a moment where you were like, this fish can change the world? Or were you like, no, the only option is for me to become of the world?
Without going into too great a detail,
Yeah.
there was a moment when my sister was visiting me in Chicago, and it was a weekend, and I was getting a slew of text messages, all in caps, from my boss. And, all caps is an aggressive form of communication. And
Sure.
she was reading over my shoulder, and she goes, why are you being talked to like this? Why on a Saturday afternoon are you being essentially yelled at over and over again on your phone? And I had become so indoctrinated to the way that things happen there that it's maybe like the fish that doesn't see the water. And I had accepted that as a form of normal, even though it really is not. And so she gave me a valuable dose of perspective that that's not how you treat people. So I was never going to change this culture, but I did finally see that I shouldn't remain part of it.
Yep. You were over that water.
There's so many water jokes. Yes, yes.
How many metaphors should we mix? Well, I'm excited to share the interview with your sister. She has such valuable insights on this big, important topic.
Okay. I love Laura so much, and I thought she had really, really wonderful things to share. So here she is.
Let me stop it. Stop. Riverside is having a moment.
Here we go.
My goodness. I'm telling you, my internet is stable. I'm going to hit refresh. Let's see what happens.
It says 99% uploading on my end. Okay. Uh-oh.
Okay, now it gave me stop.
We are here with one of my very favorite people in the entire world, my sister, Laura Engelbret. And even though we are extremely close, I think we've had such interesting and different paths through life. And we're going to dive into all that. But Laura is a fluent Spanish speaker who teaches English as a second language, has lived in 2 places in Mexico. And I think that because you're such a wonderful human, you balance out my karma of not exactly lighting the world on fire by getting people to eat healthier food. So I'm glad you're here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so honored to be here today. I was fangirling over you and Jeana earlier today, just saying it has been such an honor and a privilege to watch the evolution of this podcast. And I am so immensely proud of both of you and what you've accomplished in a short amount of time. It's been fabulous listening to your guests. I feel like I've gained so much insight from hearing all of their wisdom, and I'm just so happy to be here today. So thanks for having me.
Laura, are you my sister now too?
I think so.
Sister of the pod. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. Oh, it's like, why am I blanking on Abby
America?
Wambach.
Yes.
Abby Wambach.
Yes,
and Glennon Doyle.
Things.
It's your sister now.
Oh,
and I'll be Abby, you be Glennon. Rachel.
Sold. I will gladly take the Glennon mantle. Yes.
Yep. You're definitely a Glennon of this relationship.
Yes,
okay. So Laura, we pretty much talk every day as is and have lived our entire lives together. But I feel like other people can learn from your wisdom. And today's topic was actually inspired by you because we had a really candid conversation about what I will call connection fails. And Jeana and I spend a tremendous amount of time and energy trying to help people forge better connections. And we are very positive and silver lining oriented in what you can do to be a stronger connector. But it does make sense to look at the other side of it, which is sometimes connections don't work. Sometimes they're very hard and conflict ridden. And sometimes you have to learn a hard lesson. And you have such a powerful example that I want you to talk about what happened in Oaxaca.
Okay, well, I'm going to back up a little bit and give some context for why I moved to Oaxaca, Mexico. So Jeana and I are both Badgers. We graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And I actually majored in communication arts. I thought that I wanted to go into entertainment television and be the next Juliana Rancic, and had high hopes of doing entertainment journalism. My junior year of college, I studied abroad in Sevilla, Spain, and I lived with a host family. And it was such a transformative experience. I would say my Spanish was fairly beginner at that point. I'd had some high school Spanish, but I wasn't majoring in Spanish. I wasn't really using it. And my host family did not speak any English. So it was really a crash course in how do I acclimate and communicate with this family that I'm spending every day with? And they were so warm and welcoming, and I just immediately felt part of their family. And I have such fond memories of sitting on the sofa with my señora and watching telenovelas, and it was just such a rich experience, and it really changed my passion for like what I wanted to go into, I realized that like I really love language learning, and I was teaching them some English as they were teaching me Spanish, and I thought this is a really cool culture exchange. I wonder where this could go. At that point, it was too late to change my major. I was already almost 2 semesters out from graduating. But when I did graduate, I decided to change course, and I applied for a teaching English as a foreign language certification program in Oaxaca, Mexico. So while all my friends were kind of jetting off to big cities and starting their first year at like PR firms or investment banking companies or all these kind of like big exciting thrills, I was moving to a place like no one had ever heard of. My mom called it Oaxaca, and she was telling all her friends that Laura's going on some adventure in Oaxaca. I don't know what she's going to do down there.
Well, this was almost how many years ago for context?
This was almost 20 years ago. Oaxaca wasn't really on the map as like a tourist destination. It seemed like really random, this place in southern Mexico. And my parents were not really thrilled with this choice. They didn't understand it. They didn't really get why I had to move there. My mom is a teacher, and she's like, just go to grad school, like if you want to be a teacher, like just. And I said, I really want to have this experience. I think it's important to live abroad again. And I had such a great time in Spain. I want to see what Mexico is like. So packed up and moved to Oaxaca, Mexico, not knowing a soul. My program consisted of like 2 other girls and me. It was not really much of a program. But we also were doing a homestay with a family. And when I got down there, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little high maintenance. Like, I brought my curling iron, I brought, like, cute outfits, thinking, like, okay, I'm going to teacher school, I need to, like, dress the part. I was still, like, in college mode, right? And this was not that kind of place. And it was very clear and apparent right away I did not fit in. And that this was kind of like a business transaction homestay. This was not like, you're part of the family. So I felt a little othered right away. My Spanish wasn't as good as the other 2 students who were there. They were much more, I would say, like down to earth, kind of hippie vibe, very natural, very easygoing. And I don't think they were my biggest fans either. So there was just this feeling of tension a little bit in the home. Add to that I had some dietary restrictions, and I had mentioned to my senora some of the foods that I couldn't eat. And I didn't realize at the time culturally how insensitive that might have come across, because food is how they show love, and it's such a big part of the culture. So for me to say, oh, I don't eat pork products and I'm allergic to this and I can't eat that, created some tension and some more conflict in the house. So my solution was, I said to my senora, do you think I could just use some of your kitchen space? I'll buy my own groceries and store them there. She was kind of reluctant, but eventually she was like, fine, if that's what you need to do. So we're like a month into the program, and I come down to breakfast, and I go into the kitchen to get my eggs and make myself some scrambled eggs. And she comes in, and in Spanish, she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm making eggs. And she's like, those are my eggs. And I said, oh, I think these are mine. I bought them at the market. And she just escalates very quickly, and she starts yelling at me in Spanish. And I'm like, when you're emotional and you're heightened and all of a sudden like language goes out the window, like I could not think of how to express myself, but all she kept saying to me was like, ladrona, ladrona, which is like, you're a thief. And I'm just like feeling so attacked and full of shame. And I'm like, I did not steal these eggs. And she says to me, get out. Like,
oh no,
this isn't working out. And I start to cry, and I'm like, I don't have anywhere to go. And I just start like packing my bags, and my 2 roommates at the time were like, what happened? And I'm like, she just kicked me out. And they were just like, okay, well, we'll help you find a place. So we called the program director, who was like 25. It's not like she was like much more of an adult than I was. And we quickly found a room I could rent a couple blocks nearby. And I have never felt that like level of shame before, and feeling of like rejection and embarrassment. I mean, I was mortified. And so I'm moving into this glorified studio apartment, we'll call it, trying to unpack my things, just feeling all the feels. I open up a drawer that's for silverware, and all these cockroaches come out. And I just like, I just screamed and then burst into tears, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? And it just was kind of one of my lowest points. So I think I called Rachel, and she's like trying to walk me through this, and okay, like, what can you do, and how can we silver line this a little bit, and what do you need? So I tried to focus just on finishing the program. I had like 2 weeks left of the certification program. But during this time, there was also an escalation politically happening. There were these teacher strikes going on in the streets, and there was protests against the governor. So they were starting to issue like a curfew where nobody could leave their homes past 8 p.m. And they closed down the Zocalo, which was like the downtown. And as we were wrapping up the program, they actually said, we don't think it's a good idea. It might not be safe to stay here. We're going to go ahead and transfer you. You guys can go somewhere else if you want to go to Costa Rica or if you want to go to Guatemala. And I was just really at this crossroads of like, I wanted this adventure. I was really determined to prove to my parents, prove to myself that I could be this like independent woman. And here I am living in this cockroach infested like tiny place that doesn't have hot water, and I'm clearly failing. Like, this isn't feeling good for anybody. And I think the straw that broke the camel's back is like, there was a night that I was hearing gunshots outside my window, and I like quickly ran into the bathroom. I called my family and I said, I'm actually feeling pretty scared right now. I'm hearing gunshots. And my dad, who is never one to buy anything spur of the moment, is like such a researcher and deal finder, hangs up, calls me back 10 minutes later and says, you're booked out on the first flight tomorrow. You're coming home. Sorry, I'm just like getting emotional.
Oh, Laura, I remember this. I know.
And there was this immense gratitude for the support from my family, but also this great feeling of shame of like, I just failed. Like, this wasn't how it was supposed to turn out at all. And as I'm flying home and I'm thinking about reflecting on like my 6 weeks in Oaxaca, I'm like, okay, so now what? I'm moving back into my childhood room. I don't have a plan. I don't have a job. I don't even really have a direction. I don't have a teaching license. Like, what now? So it would have been really easy in that moment to just abandon everything and to say that left a bad taste in my mouth. I have no interest in pursuing education, or I'm going to really take a different path from language learning. But for some reason, the narrative I was telling myself is like, good things will happen. Just give it time. Like, you just were in a bad place at a bad time. Like, this isn't your story. This isn't how it's supposed to end. And so I really hustled to find anything. And I landed on a job at a Spanish immersion school in Minneapolis teaching as a paraprofessional. So I'm making like a $15 wage. You know, it's not the hourly wage. It's not ideal with my college degree. And I'm kind of a glorified lunch lady, if you will.
But a very cute lunch lady, yes.
I'm doing lunch and recess. But I loved it because I got to meet kids. It was like 90% Spanish, native Spanish speakers. So I got to interact with K-8 Spanish students. My Spanish improved tremendously. And I got to be a voyeur of all these amazing teachers in the classroom and watch them as like they showed off their skills and showed me like, what does good teaching look like? So it really lit a fire under me and made me realize this is the right career choice for me. Like, this is what I needed to see to prove to myself that like, this is what I meant to do. So I applied to grad school and I did a master's program and a dual license in English and Spanish. And I set off into the workplace as an EL teacher. So, sorry, this is getting very long-winded. If we all need to take a collective breath, that's okay. But
I love this story because I know what's coming, and it's pretty big.
Yeah, so I get into teaching. I love it. I'm going to fast forward about 13 years. So I've been an elementary EL teacher for about 13 years. I'm really enjoying it. This is definitely the right path for me. And Rachel and I have a first cousin who's more like a sister to us. And she says, guess what? We're getting married in Oaxaca. You guys should come. And I was like, oh my gosh, absolutely. Yes, let's do it. And so my mom and my sister and I got on a plane and we went to Oaxaca for Mira's wedding. And this is in 2019. And we're staying at a hotel in the Zocalo. And I'm just like, oh, wow, this is so cool to see it as, you know, a lively and really colorful downtown versus when I saw it all, you know, graffitied and boarded up. So I'm getting to experience what Oaxaca should have been. And one day, I think it was like the day before the wedding, we're walking around and I said to Rachel and my mom, I said, I wonder if I could find the place I used to live. I remember it was near this like Parque Luisa, and like I have a terrible sense of direction. So it's not like high odds that I'm going to find this, right? Like I use GPS every day to get to work. Like,
this is a family failing. Yes.
I should know by now. But so it's kind of a miracle that we're walking, Rachel, and like we stumble upon it. And I'm like looking in it from the outside, it just looks like a gate. And I'm like, I think this is it. And my mom's like, go knock on the door. And I was like, no, like they probably don't even live there anymore. You know, like they were an older couple. It's been 13 years. She's like, just do it. So she kind of pushes me and I knock on the door and my host father answers. And I'm like, oh my, I'm just kind of blown away. And he clearly doesn't know who I am. And I say to him in Spanish, like, I was a student here 13 years ago. I lived with your family and I'm in town for a wedding and I thought it would be fun to reconnect. I like leave out the part where we didn't done like the best
By the way,
friends.
you kicked me to the curb.
Yes, you evicted
Egg
me.
thief.
But,
Yeah.
so he opens up the door. He welcomes us inside. His wife is still there. And we're just kind of catching up. And they've had many students over the years. So I think she just thinks I'm one of the students that she's had. And we're just having a really nice catch-up session. I'm talking about, my family, asking about her family. And I think Rachel pulls out her phone or something. She's like, show her your pictures. So we pull up Facebook from, 2006 and show her the pictures of her and her son Manuel and like her daughter Cece, and her face, like she turns white. And she goes like this, and she's like, I remember. And she starts to get emotional, and I start to get emotional. My mom's getting emotional. And she's like, you left. And I was like, I did. I said, I think you kicked me out, and you called me a thief. And she's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And it was this full circle moment. And I said, you know what? I'm so glad that happened because you showed me how to be resilient in the face of adversity. And you showed me the strength I didn't know I had. And it really it propelled me into this beautiful life I have where I'm in the career I'm meant to be in. And I love Mexico. I love Spanish. My girls go to a Spanish immersion school. I said, thank you for this opportunity because without you, I might not have ever fulfilled this, goal of mine. So it was really powerful. And we had a great visit. We took a picture together. It's not a connection that we haven't stayed in touch, but I feel like we both got from it what we needed. We had this closure. We closed the loop. And I might not ever know what happened and why, the eggs set her off on that level of frustration and anger with me. But I felt so good about being able to make it right and show her I am a good person and I had good intentions and it all worked out the way it was supposed to.
Oh my gosh. Oh, well, one, I'm watching Rachel get emotional.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Not a podcast episode goes by where one or both of us does not cry. But I do. It's so interesting too, because to think about, Laura, your experience after leaving the house and being overwhelmed by what was going on in that city and the living conditions you were in. I wonder if, to make a generous assumption, if she and her family were under a tremendous amount of stress with what was happening in Oaxaca at the time too, in just a way that a 23, 24-year-old couldn't maybe understand yet.
Totally. Yeah. I think there could have been a lot of factors at play. I could have just been a stress that she didn't need and a pain in her side, which yeah, I for sure was. And for whatever reason, it just she's like, nope, this is not working. I mean, could it have been handled differently? Absolutely. But I think in some ways it served both of us and gave us both what we needed in that moment.
I also remember, because this was the year that you dyed your hair brown to fit in more, right?
I did that too after college.
I thought I would look more Latina.
Serious?
I would trick them into thinking I belonged there. I was a native. The minute I opened my mouth, obviously it was a dead giveaway that I'm a gringa. But yeah, I did try to blend in a little bit more.
The year you dyed your hair brown. I did it too. Mine was for different reasons. I dyed my hair Brown to be taken more seriously while I worked on a political campaign.
Yes, Obama, right? I was reading about
Yeah.
that. That must have been amazing.
You guys are both meant to be blondes and flourish as such. But
Yeah.
Laura, to like wrap a bow around your story, I did get emotional because I was there through the whole scope of it. And I remember how acutely painful it was when you were kicked out for something you didn't do and couldn't even express or defend yourself because it was so emotional and so heightened. And then when we ended up in their house all those years later, and there was this like reconciliation and this moment of reconnection, and you got closure that I don't think either of you ever anticipated getting. It was just massive. And again, like we talk so much about connection and sort of like professional networking and connection and friendship, but I think it is worth exploring when connections are really fraught and really difficult and there's a lot of baggage attached, and what it looks like to earn your moment where you can come back together and figure out how the relationship can be reframed. So I love this. And you are such a good teacher, and Spanish is such a part of your life. And I remember mom and dad not at all wanting you to move abroad and me being like, do it anyways. Go for it.
Thank you for your encouragement. And I kind of want to put you on the spot for a second, Rach, because when we were talking about this idea, I posed the question to you. I said, what relationship or what experience have you had that's felt like a fail, but ultimately been the biggest gift?
You did ask me this, and I did think about it. I mean, you know the answer, and Jeana knows the answer, but I will explain a little bit. And I think it's interesting as sisters who have so much common territory between us and ways of operating, is Laura and I both love to connect and feel accepted and belong to something, with some people pleasing, sprinkled on the top. And I had a job, I joined a company where it was so immediately evident that I was not a great fit. From the way that I dressed to the way I'm sort of like bubbly and a big talker, the way I move through the world, the way I wrote my emails, nothing about the way that I had succeeded in the PR agency realm was translating to this new job. And I think when you realize really quickly that you're not a match for something, you have two choices. You can leave or you can adapt and change. And unfortunately, I chose adapt and change and tried to be more malleable, tried to make myself fit within a framework that clearly wasn't meant for me. And I'm a little embarrassed by that. Like, instead of just staying true to me, I tried to be more like something that ultimately intrinsically wasn't a love match. And Laura and Jeana, you guys know, like, big shocker, it didn't work out. Like, my initial instinct was correct. I wasn't connecting, not with my boss, not with the way the company worked as a whole. And I gave it like the full court press. And I think that's the hardest part, just as you did, Laura. Like, you wanted to be accepted. You wanted that sense of belonging. I've been reading a lot of Brené Brown recently, so this is living at the top of my head. But when you feel outside the circle and you feel isolated, it's really hard to move forward productively. And when I did leave this company, I felt like it was a big, glaring, shameful cloud that was over my head. Like, you didn't fit, you didn't connect, something about you wasn't right enough or wasn't compatible enough, and that's a you thing that you have to sit with. And Laura, you and I both had these like really difficult sort of like look in the mirror moments about what do you do with it. And the upside of something so jarring and so formative is that I was willing to start all over, to reimagine my career, to start my own company and figure out a way to move forward in my profession that didn't depend on somebody else's company culture, to avoid the toxicity, to not feel like I had to change parts of myself to be accepted in a way that felt disingenuous. So again, a connection fail ultimately leading to something good, but I don't want to gloss over that it's not really hard when, despite your best efforts and your purest intentions, you just sometimes are not going to be a match for something and the connection might not exist. Mm-hmm. Jeana, now it's your turn to go in the hot seat.
I was like, follow up. Well, okay, so maybe you know this, Rachel, but I don't do great in like a corporate structure. I should have known that about myself from the beginning. And what I mean by I don't do great in a corporate structure, like, I don't like being told what to do.
Check. Yes.
Yeah, I like freedom. I like the opportunity to explore and fail and learn. And I actually I really enjoy the art of failure, like failing and learning and getting something out of it. All that is to say, I had a few corporate jobs where just each one of them, like I felt like I didn't fit or it didn't work. Where are you going, Laura?
Sorry, I had to let the dog out. Sorry.
What's your dog's name, by the way?
JJ.
Like JJ Watt or like John
Well,
Jr.?
When we got him from the rescue, they had called him Jefferson. Like, then some people called him Jeff, and I'm like, my dog's name's not Jeff. So I just shortened it to JJ.
Jeffrey. Jefferson. Okay, great. JJ had to go outside to the listener. JJ had to go outside. I just was curious. Okay. And so my first agency job, I was in an intern group, and that was like so lovely because it was a group of peers. It wasn't lovely because we had to get there at like 5 a.m. But it was lovely because I was in a group of peers. We were all in the similar life stage. It felt like built-in friends. I still can reach out to that group of like 13 people if I need something, if I'm traveling, or if I just have a question. They're all great. And they're like all across the country now. But then transitioning into like a full-time culture of an agency, I worked at this agency that was very like cool. We've got a beer cart on Fridays. We love to get wasted together. We have a softball league, like that, those sorts of things, which are cool in your like early 20s. But also I remember once after my first new business pitch, which in agencies you get asked to be on a new business pitch, it's a big deal. Like you are even though you're like working extra hours for no extra pay, you feel like the honor of it is worth it. Cause then you can put on your resume that you won new business.
You've been chosen. Yes.
You've been chosen. Yeah. It is this thing of like being chosen. And by the way, you have to do all your other work. And I was on this new business pitch. It was my first ever new business pitch. No one like really prepped me, but also like I probably didn't ask the questions I needed to ask, being fair at 23, 24. But after the pitch, we didn't get the business. And this guy was older than me by like quite a few years, let's call him 32, pulls me aside at this happy hour and he goes, you know why I think we didn't get the business? I think, you know what I'm going to say, Rachel?
No, he
didn't. He said,
no.
Yeah, he like in like a one-on-one conversation told me I'm the reason we didn't get the business. I'm still connected to this guy. Should I name him?
Hold on,
no,
Jeana.
we don't do that.
Hold
we
on.
don't do. Yeah,
There's I've been in PR for 20 plus years. There's no situation where the most junior member of a pitch team is the one that sinks an opportunity unless you literally personally attacked the person you're pitching to. It's just not true.
Thank you.
Horrible.
Thank you. Yeah. So it was very like, I don't feel like I'm being like, if you're going to put me in a corporate structure, like give me opportunity to grow in mentorship and also like tell me what I'm supposed to do at this new business pitch. So it was shortly after that I had, so like, I'm telling you a story that's basically like why every single one of these corporate jobs was like a failed connection, but also I learned a lot in each one. Like if you're going to put me in a corporate structure, like give me a mentor.
Exactly.
But shortly after that, I was approached by an executive who had left that company, who had gone to this startup. It was so exciting because at the time I'd started dating Justin, who's now my husband. He worked in startups and they just like at that time and even now, like, but back then it was like startups were like, oh, so sexy, so cool, oh my God. And they wanted to hire early on like a social media and content strategy function of the marketing team. And so he was pursuing me for that role. And I was interested in it. But everybody at the agency was, not everybody at the agency, but like a select cohort of people who were my bosses and bosses' bosses. Once they found out that I was going to that startup with this former executive, were extremely mean to me on my way out. So there was like my 2 weeks were bad. And so I just tried to like put my head down and like get through it. Cause I felt like this, I don't know, like honor code of like, you give 2 weeks notice, you do your 2 weeks. And so I went and worked at that startup and it was very interesting. It was very cool. And like I had a good experience. I would say I had a good experience. the startup's name is Marquetta, and they are doing wonderfully now. They have like almost like a $3 billion valuation at this point.
Wow.
My equity did not vest because they, which is such a bummer. I wish them I wish them all the good in the world, because the founding team made the right move by pivoting out of their original direction, which I was a part of, and they had like satellite offices. So they pivoted, closed down their satellite offices. In one fell swoop, I lost my job and my laptop.
Oh no.
And so I walked down the street to anti-cruelty and got Maverick, my like soul puppy who we just lost. This is 13 years, a little, oh my God, almost 14 years ago. And then took a job back at a corporate role because I didn't learn the right lesson from that one. Like the lesson I should have learned was like, take risks, yes, and like just be ready for like maybe for it to fall apart. But the lesson I sort of internalized was like too much risk. Swing way back to the most corporate PR agency you could work at. And I had 2 offers from one that was like very structured, very corporate, very like regimented. Think like we do manicures on Monday at this PR firm so that every girl's nails are done for work. That was like the kind of place it was. And then the other agency, which also like that was a really nice perk looking back on it. But the other agency was a little more like startup, be more my speed. I picked the one that was more structured because I wanted the name, I wanted the security, and it just fell apart. But it ended up giving me my rock bottom moment, Laura, like your rock bottom moment, where I was sort of like, there's got to be joy outside of this. I can't live in this life. What is a thing I could create for myself?
Okay, real quick, I know this is a little bit of a personal ethos that might not apply to everyone, but I really do feel like we encounter similar lessons over and over in our lives until we learn them. I had to encounter them repeatedly in my dating life, but also professional life. And I think for you, it sounds like different iterations of the same corporate job kept leading to a similar outcome, which is I'm not happy and I'm not flourishing. Mm-hmm. And Laura, I think this was one giant lesson, and you actually absorbed it really beautifully and built something on top of it. But I want to actually, Laura, I want to tackle the next stage for you, because you work with all of these immigrant students, and it's a situation where there could be a lot of anxiety and nerves, and you have to create connection and make people feel comfortable in a way that you weren't necessarily made to feel so comfortable when you were in the immigrant role of moving into this woman's home. So as you work with all these students and you're going into a new school year, what's your secret sauce? How do you make sure that these kids feel at home? And I think there's probably some connection advice we can all use in there about creating an environment where new people can feel accepted and safe.
So I think the heart of the matter is relationships. And what does that look like? How do we foster them? How do we create them, especially if there's like a language barrier, or if, like you said, there's this kind of feeling of generalized anxiety or trauma from moving from a, maybe like a country where you're escaping war or poverty, whatever it might be. So 3 years ago, my family and I took a sabbatical, and it was in the midst of COVID. And I was feeling quite burnt out from education. I was feeling like there was just so much being put on teachers. There was so many demands being, expected of kids during this time when the world is in complete chaos, right? We're in the global pandemic, and yet teachers are expected to show up every day and give students all the things they need. And so I applied for a sabbatical, and I took my family to Querétaro, Mexico. And as part of the sabbatical, I wanted to research, how do you, as a new immigrant, find community, and how do you acclimate, and what is it like firsthand to be the other, right? Because I have a lot of empathy naturally. I feel like that's a big part of who I am, but I've never been in a position where I've had to with my family, start from the ground up and like build a life and try to succeed and thrive, right? So we moved to Querétaro, Mexico. We didn't know anybody. We found an Airbnb. We found, at that time, schools were not in person except private schools. So we're Jewish, but there was a Catholic school that was enrolling. So we enrolled our girls in Catholic school. And Lily had had a couple years of Spanish under her belt, but Hannah was 4 and had never had any Spanish exposure. And so we were like diving headfirst into like this social experiment, and I was using my kids as guinea pigs to figure out like, how do we do this? What does this look like? And what I found is, I know you guys have talked about this on your podcast, it takes one, right? It just takes one. And so there was a mom at the school named Regina, and her family was from Mexico City, and they had moved to Querétaro during COVID because Mexico City was on lockdown, and like as a big city just wasn't conducive for their family. And so she WhatsApped me and said, like, judging by your name, I think you're probably not from around here. Laura and Christian Engelbret, like you don't exactly sound like natives. I want to make sure that you feel welcome and that like we can help you, because I was in this position last year and people were so welcoming to me. What do you need and how can I help you?
Oh my God.
I was just like blown away. And she wasn't just doing lip service, like she really meant it. Like I was bombarding her with questions about like, who's your kid's doctor? Like, where do you go for, a dentist? Like, where do I get groceries? Like, we don't have a car. How should I get around? Like, I had so many questions, and she was so helpful. And she put me in a WhatsApp group with all the other moms in my kids' classes. And like, so I had this like built-in group, which is not something we do in the U.S. Like, I don't have a shared, phone chat with all the moms, or like, I don't have, like, there's just not that sense of like, let's be inclusive. Like, I have my kids' friends that I know they're moms, but there's not this like built-in network that they have worked really hard to create. And so just having that one person introduced us to so many people and helped us feel like we were really part of the community. And so the first thing I do as an EL teacher is I give parents my cell phone number, and I start a WhatsApp group, and I invite them to see other families that are going through the same thing they are. And I intentionally try to like pair them up with people who have been here, even if it's like 6 months longer, who can just be a resource and a mentor for them, because it's so lonely and so scary doing it by yourself. And I found that that's really helpful. And the kids feed off of how their parents are feeling. So if I can go up to a mom who's like visibly nervous, looking around, not sure what to expect, and I can just say, I'm a mom. I get this. I'm here for you. I've lived abroad too. I know this is really hard. We're going to get through this together. I've got it. I'm going to take care of your kiddo. They're in good hands. Like, you see their shoulders relax. You see their smile. Like, they know that you're a safe place. And then their kids can kind of lean in and trust that, like, you are going to be there for them. So I would say that's the first. Sorry, that was really long-winded.
I love your stories.
Question, but I think in order to really establish relationships, you need to go all in. Like, it can't be lip service. It can't be like, if you need anything, reach out to me. Like, that's putting the onus on them to have to do all the heavy lifting. Like, they're going through enough. Like, you provide the resources. You say, here's a list of, like, if you don't have insurance, here's a list of all the places that you don't have to have insurance and you can get free dental care, or you can get free health visits, because that's a really big thing for families. If you don't have a work visa or you're trying to establish credit, here's some resources that are available for you too. If you're, as parents, if you're looking for adult basic ed classes, these community centers offer free English courses. Like, be the person that can provide the resources for all these families and help them out in that way, so that you're releasing a little bit of the burden that they're feeling. I think that's really important.
May I make an observation? And you tell me if I'm getting this right, but I feel like your upbringing gave you like two pieces of connection that are so important, and maybe like both of you have it, but in different amounts. So there's like the mechanics of connection, where it's sort of like the process of like you connect, you take these steps to be a safe connection, you close the loop. And then there's the empathy of connection, where it's more of a feeling of like, I understand what it felt like to be X, therefore I do Y. And you both have it, but I think maybe like you see it differently. You tell me.
You know what I'm thinking, Laura? Well, first of all, I just realized you hit on two things, and Jeana, that was so astute. There's emotional generosity and connection, and I think there's the practical resource part. here are things I can tangibly do that are of benefit, and I'm willing to do them for you. And emotional generosity of, I am showing up for you, I care about you, and I'm displaying that you can trust and rely upon me. But it's interesting because my mom was a teacher for decades, and Laura's a teacher, and my dad worked in business for decades, and I work in business. And we sometimes joke that we are a mix of both parents, but have modeled our lives a little bit more after each respective parent. But this is why I said Laura's the best karma. She's so good. She's such a good human.
But I like to pretend that you like came out of the womb carrying a briefcase.
Also, when we were kids, we would play school, and I would assume that I would be the teacher because I was 3 years older, and that's what older siblings get to do. But no, Laura wanted to be the teacher, and she wanted me to sit in our pretend classroom and listen to her teach me things I already knew.
Well, speaking of childhood, I would love to know, like, what do you remember about friendship and connection as kids? Like, what was it like? We've heard stories about your parents, but what do you remember, like, as kids in your house? Were you the place to hang out? What happened?
Laura, are you thinking about the Ked story too?
The Ked?
The Ked's story.
I was not thinking. I was going to give you like a really nice, like.
No, go with the nice one. Go with the nice one.
If you want to take the claws out and start. I mean, we can go there. We can go.
The claws? No,
you go with your nice story.
I was going to say, like, Rachel has always been surrounded by a group of friends. She has always been the one people gravitate towards. She just has such like an infectious personality of like, people just they're drawn to her. She's always been super popular. We would always be the house where all of her friends would gather, like, and I would want to like eavesdrop on all like the cool girls and what they were doing. And so I feel like for you, connection and friendship has always felt maybe a little bit more innate and second nature to you. I did not have the easiest time in high school. Like, I had one really close friend. Her name was Jade. And she was an out-of-the-box thinker. And, like, we just kind of bonded on, like, some of our quirks. But it was harder for me to find. I never really had a group. I would kind of float around a little bit.
I feel like you had a group of friends through camp, though, and through other activities. They just didn't actually attend the same high school. But Laura, I think, is downplaying how wonderful she is, and I think it just took a minute to aggregate the right people. But you were like queen of Herzl Camp and had so many friends through that realm. And you're being very nice to me. I hated junior high. We all have had our moments where we didn't feel like we were in a particular group.
I used to read Rachel's diary frequently.
You and Mom. Apparently you has a book for everybody.
Her vocabulary, Jeana, like, this girl had a mouth on her for being like 12 years old. Like, you would not believe.
No, don't say it. I thought about it, but we shouldn't say it. We shouldn't say it. What I was going to joke about is I think Laura and I are a connection success story because we did not, and I say this with love, but I don't think we found our friendship until I left for college. And I always cared about you deeply, and sometimes we would have so much fun together. But I think having a sibling that is a freshman in high school when you're a senior, these 3 years feel very paramount. You're kind of gut checking with each other. All the boys loved Laura, and I would get so annoyed about that aspect. You, as I said, you were really good at singing, dancing in Spanish, and I was a great speller. But Laura did steal my Keds and lie about it, and so I wrote a scathing diary entry about her with completely inappropriate language, considering she was in 4th grade.
I stole so many of your clothes, and now my younger daughter, as soon as my older one's out of the house, will wander around my older daughter's closet and take things. And I'm like, go for it. Just do it. This is like rite of passage as a younger sister. Like, I'm not even going to stop you. Like, yeah, she's got cuter clothes. Take them. Just make sure they're back before she gets home.
No.
And make sure you get the stain off. You just have to stock your house, Laura, with like shout wipes and Tide sticks.
Actually, Laura, the most us thing happened last night because I bought the twins workout leggings, and they thought if they could share them, it would be better because they would have 2 colors they could choose from, just one. I'm like, this is a huge step. Kayla and Shira never share clothes. And Kayla put them on first, and Shira goes, don't stretch them out.
You used to say that to me all the time.
I used to say that to you. Not because you were bigger than me, but because clothes felt different when they were brand new versus once worn. We were the worst. We were such petty sisters until we became best friends. And I think there's our own little connection moment is that once I left the house and was out at college, I realized there was so much value I'd been sitting on in our relationship. And then when you launched in the world, that was a whole new step too. And then we've had this incredible and beautiful and deep friendship for many, many years ever since, but can still laugh about Barbie fails and clothes stealing and journal reading and just,
And it
the
never
stuff that
fully
happens.
goes away. I feel like we've also found like we've been taking sister trips for what, like 15 years or more,
Longer.
20 years maybe. And
Yeah.
we found like our perfect number is like 4 nights max because like the fifth night and nothing good happens after the fifth night. Like we'll have like
Yeah.
the most ridiculous fights or just like say really mean things to each other. So I feel like we've over the years, like we've just kind of like honed in on like what is the magic formula for our relationship. But I'm so grateful for you, and you're my favorite person in the world.
You're my
So
favorite
4
person.
nights
For 4
maximum.
nights.
For four
For
nights.
4 nights.
Or
Well, after
sleep
that, with
separate beds.
anyone. Yeah.
Because one time I had insomnia when we were in Banff, and I thought Rachel was going to strangle me with a pillow. She was so over it.
It's
Tossing and
not
turning.
you, Laura. If anybody tosses and turns next to me, spouse included, child,
You're out of
doesn't
there.
matter. Yes. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, just as we sort of are in this phase of back to school, Laura, you have such a wonderful awareness of what it takes to sort of have that successful community around you as a parent and as a kid. So let's give tips to maybe the parents who are in a new classroom or going somewhere new with their kiddos. How can they maybe arm themselves with those connection points if they don't have a Laura in their life, starting the WhatsApp group?
Oh, that's a really great question. One tip I would give that has been really helpful is that my principal, a few years ago after COVID, started what's called listening circles for parents. And he first started it with like different demographic groups from our building of like Somali families, Latino families. We had one with like Russian and Ukrainian families. And he invited parents to come to school and without their kids. And we circled up and we had these prompts where we said things, and we had interpreters there too. And we had prompts like, what are 3 of your top values for your children? Like what, when you think about like hopes and dreams, like what are your values? It could be like honesty, it could be perseverance, it could be respect. Like, and tell me about like one of those and why they're important to you. And so like we go around and like these families who don't know each other are sharing their values, and like you're seeing so many commonalities between families of like we might have different age kids, we might come from different places, but like we all really value XYZ. And then we kind of talked about like what are your hopes and dreams for the year? Like what do you want for your kids? What's going well? What could the school do to improve? So as a parent, I think it's important to like employ other people beyond just like your child's teacher, like having an opportunity to meet with like the school social worker, or if you have like a dean of students or principal, vice principal, and just say like what are ways that we can elevate more parent voices and be more of a team and collaborative player with other departments within the school, because teachers are overwhelmed. There's like class sizes are bigger than ever, demands of like curriculum, state testing, standards, like it is, the teacher is doing everything that they can do to create the community within their classroom, to meet the needs of all their students, to differentiate. I do think as a parent, recognizing that, giving some grace and saying like, well, what can I do to help and be involved? And what am I responsible for ultimately?
This is such good advice. Laura, everybody should have a you in their school.
Well, I work with amazing teachers, and I've learned so much from my role being able to like push into classrooms and see the work that they're putting in. And I wish that Rachel and her daughters came to my school over Thanksgiving break, and they had a chance to come to my classroom and meet my students. And I wish more people had a chance to push into their child's classroom. And maybe that's something as a parent you could do if you are curious about what it looks like, because I think you can gain so much insight from watching the magic of teaching. I mean, it is truly an art, like classroom management, socio-emotional well-being, content, discipline, all of it. Like it's such a dance that teachers do, and I wish more people were privy to like what goes into that.
Yeah.
So I guess that would be my 2 cents.
Love it. Should we have a connection conversation, Jeana?
Let's have a connection conversation.
You drive. You drive.
Okay, Laura, tell us about the last connection you made.
So I like to talk to everybody when I'm traveling, and so I would probably be an Uber driver. It's not uncommon for my husband and I, like especially when we're speaking Spanish, to like get our server's number, our Uber's driver's number, like talk to them, find out their life stories, see if we can meet up for a drink at some point or a family dinner. Like that's kind of our MO. So that's probably the last connection we made, is talking to our Uber driver.
Having dinner at his house. What is one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self about connecting?
So I'm actually going to flip this a little bit. I think my younger self should give my middle-aged self some advice, because 20-something Laura was where it's at. Like, I was fun, and I was not afraid of anything. I was this like fearless chick who was a wedding DJ, and I worked as a Red Bull driver, and I had no fear, and I was just like, I would talk to anybody, and I would get up in front of crowds. And I feel like that 20-something Laura should like try to get current Laura to branch out a little bit more and take some more risks and be more fun. Just like a funny story illustrating this is, it was my good friend's birthday recently. She was having a 50th birthday party at a wine room, and she had invited 50 friends, and it was going to be like a women's only thing. And so I texted her. I was like, okay, Molly, I'm going to pick you up. I want you to have fun. I'll be your DD. And she texted back like, great. Just so you know, because it's my party, I'm going to stay the whole time. So if you're going to drive me, like, you need to commit to not leaving before it's over. Which is just
That's
like,
fair.
It's so true. Like, I would definitely like nod off by like 9 o'clock and be like, it's getting late, like time to head home. Like 20-something me needs to like remind 40-something me, like, suck it up and like have a good time and let loose and just be. Don't overthink, and don't be such a homebody, and like have more fun in your life. Be more playful.
This is taking me back. I remember many years ago, Laura came to visit me in Chicago. I feel like I was probably 25, 26, because I was living in the Gold Coast, and I was concerned about how you're going to get from the airport to my place. And you're like, don't worry, I met somebody at the airport, and he's going to give me a ride. And I was like, don't get in this guy's car. You're like, it's fine. He went to a school that's like a cereal. And I go, what do you mean? And I go, Kellogg?
Kellogg. I got there. A cereal school.
Yeah, it took me a minute. So Laura's like, even better, maybe we should hang out with him, because you were always trying to set me up. Like the time you set me up on a date with a guy who had just gotten out of jail, but you didn't tell me that until I was on the date.
It was white collar.
For what?
I don't know if it was white collar. It was non-violent crime, but it
was like embezzlement or something.
Oh, just embezzlement.
Just like a little deal.
But Jeana, I would go on a date with almost anybody.
Such high standards.
Because I think you met him when you were the beer tub girl at Madison. The standards were in flux. But anyways, Laura will talk to anybody. I usually will too. We have different moments of discernment, different moments where we hold the other person back. But karaoke Laura, vacation Laura, tequila Laura, there's iterations where you still have it.
There's fun buried in there. It needs to come out more often.
I believe in you.
That's where the connections happen, right, Jeana? It's like, who isn't going to bond over like karaoke and tequila? Like that's, I think that's like the perfect formula.
You know what? I really think you thought I was going to come with you on this journey. Karaoke.
What?
I'll do karaoke, but I'm just not much of a drinker these days. But if I do have a couple of drinks, I will talk to anybody. But if I have a couple of drinks, I'll talk to really anybody. Mm-hmm. Laura, one more question. In our connection conversation, we want to know if you could connect with anyone, if you could make friends with, have a meal with, or just maybe like have a casual run-in with anyone. Don't say Oprah. Everyone says Oprah. Someone who if you want to say Oprah, you can say Oprah. Someone you haven't met, your dream connection. Tell us who they are.
Okay. I have like a silly response to this and a more serious response.
Okay.
I love John Hamm. Have loved him ever since his Mad Men days.
Okay, I did not know this is who you would pick.
I know. I was like, I didn't even know myself until I saw a video of him this morning on the Today Show talking about his Bad Bunny experience at the concert, and he just looked like he was having so much fun. And I was just like,
he's a silly goose.
I want to. Do you know him?
No, but I did say that. Like,
you did say it as if you hang out with John Hamm. Yeah.
No, like he is a silly goose.
He is a silly goose. Like he just phones into interviews from hot air balloons. Okay, keep going. Just such a silly goose.
So I just feel like he'd be a good time, and I really like him a lot as an actor, and not bad to look at.
Also, Laura has never, ever, ever brought up John Hamm before in her entire life. I didn't even know he existed in your frame of reference.
I know, I was like, Rachel,
hi, John.
Like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, I would more likely say Mark Consuelos before I would say
For
John
sure,
Hamm.
Mark Consuelos.
Yeah.
Yes.
So sexy. But the real...
My goodness. My goodness.
I guess the real thing I was thinking about is like, when I was listening to your recent episode with Tim and like his dinner table discussions, and I was thinking, do any of you guys read Cup of Joe by chance or follow Joanna Goddard?
Because of you a little bit.
Feel like I have. I'm going to Google on this tab. Keep going.
Look up Cup of Joe. She's a Brooklyn-based like blogger, and I started following her after my cousin recommended her, and I really love her because like she's just so real and touches on many different themes, from like parenting, relationships, food, travel, like all the, I guess that's not the most, original of topics. That's pretty much any blogger. But she recently had like an evening with, like, she was naming the people that she got to, remember your
Yes.
partner was there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was like we had like a journaling club. I think she was featuring an author's recent release, and she invited kind of like, I want to say like 8 to 10 people to her apartment, and it was like such an all-star group of people. It was Priya Parker, it was Britt Bennett, the author, it was like Deb Perlman, the cookbook writer. It was like all these people, and she just like blogged about their evening together, and I was like, if I could meet somebody, I would want to be in a space like that, where you're just like at a really low-key gathering in someone's living room, but surrounded by really intellectually curious, I'm going to take that line, people who could talk about really anything and go deep, not have this like little chit chat or small talk, but like kind of like Rachel, you said, the no small talk. Like I would just like to be surrounded by a group of really curious, interesting people and just see where the night takes us and pick their brains. Like that would be kind of my dream connection.
With John Hamm there, yeah.
I know. So John Hamm would be on my right.
John Hamm and Cup of Joe.
Joanna
Goddard
on my left, and we would just like all hang together, and I think it would
Just
be
a couple of silly geese.
Maybe Mark and Swalos he and Kelly could like join us if they're free, but not
Or just Mark. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you added Kelly as like, I guess Kelly could come.
I mean, she would probably feel left out, but
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, Laura, I love you, and I am so happy we had this conversation and that you and Jeana finally got to meet, and you can be a sister of the podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was such an honor, and I just loved having this opportunity to chat with you ladies. I love you both, and I am such a fan of your podcast, and can't wait to see where this is headed.
Thank you.
Love you too, Laura.
All right, take care, everybody. Have a good fall, everyone who is starting back to school, parents, kids. Hope everybody has a great school year.
Oh.
Rachel, what a delight. Thank you for bringing your sister to the podcast today. That was such a wonderful view into, one, your childhood, but two, into a story of connection going wrong.
Thank you for indulging me, because I love Laura so much. And even if she wasn't my sister, I think she's such a good storyteller and a really thoughtful person. And we haven't tapped into educators before. And so I thought she had some really great wisdom about what it's like to show up in a school community and forge connections in a way that's a little different than the business world we've been talking about so much.
And I did love, after we stopped recording, I was like, Laura, that was such a Minnesota goodbye.
Yes.
I love a Minnesota goodbye where it's like you say goodbye and you mean goodbye, but then once everyone else says goodbye, you've got something else that you need to say too.
The one more time. Yes.
Yeah.
Our Minnesota show is a lot.
We all have it.
Yes.
Should we do our show and tell, Rachel?
Yes. What do you have for me?
Well, I'm bringing back my show and tells that I had originally brought last week when I changed them on the fly. So I have two news articles. I'll put them in the show notes, but they basically both support the idea of connecting with folks who aren't exactly like you. And I've talked about Robert Putnam, the researcher behind the book Bowling Alone and lots of other similarly named research papers, but he essentially mapped civic participation to likelihood to create two different kinds of bonds. One of those bonds was it was bridging or essentially like sameness, like bridging and bonding connections. And bridging is with people who aren't exactly like you. So maybe you grew up in a different socioeconomic status. Maybe you had a different religion. Maybe you had a different neighborhood, etc. That's bridging, where you're connecting through something to someone who's different. And then the bonding is connecting to people who are like you already. So it's not sort of bridging outside of your likeness. And what he mapped through his research was that bridging connections, so connections through things like a bowling club, like a softball league, like run clubs in his more recent work, are actually correlated to civic participation in things like running for office, voting, and really just like in general, looking at your community as something that we do together. And when I say community, I mean like participation in civic life in America. So I bring up all of that to say there's an even newer study that wasn't done by Robert Putnam that says that, but it's sort of a bummer. It'll bum him out. So it was published by Social, Psychological, and Personality Science, but it found that fewer than 1 in 10 American friendships cross political party lines. And we are probably both seeing that happen in our own worlds too. But what that leads to is this sort of isolation. And then the Financial Times recently highlighted new research from Raj Chetty and others showing that cross-class friendships, this is more related to socioeconomic status, so different economic backgrounds, can actually increase upward mobility by 38%. So these sort of bridging friendships are just good for, one, the economy, two, civic participation. So be friends with people who aren't exactly like you. Join a run club.
Okay, I love when you bring these studies because thought-provoking and interesting content. To make sure I understand this, bonding isn't necessarily a bad thing in this study.
Correct.
But it does mean that you tend to hang with your tribe. Whoever's like you, you're leaning into investing time and energy in. Great for friendship, but it doesn't necessarily help in the bigger scheme of things. But if you bridge and you form relationships with people who are not just like you through shared activities, that would be more likely to prompt you to care about and lean into your community in a proactive way.
Exactly.
And maybe you'd be friends with then people of different political stripes or different financial strata because you found ways to be together that are not isolating but more connecting.
Yes. And both of these are super important too, because bonding gives you a community of people who can be there for you, who understand what you're going through. Like bonding should not ever be written off, because without bonding, you don't really have like the person to bring you soup, you know? And like without bridging, you lose that sort of cross-class, cross-divide empathy. So like both are sort of important to society.
Okay, thank you for letting me process out loud, which is how I learn. And it makes me think that what Laura does and what teachers do in general is that they're continual bridges, because every student is connected to another family that has a unique situation, and they're sort of the hub for all these relationships and a means of helping them.
Classrooms are like
study. Yes.
Yeah, classrooms are the ultimate like social connection point where bridges can be built, like, because you'll find like kids from different religious backgrounds, kids who have parents with different incomes, like those kids aren't rich but their parents are, so a classroom is a great place to have those bridging connections and bonding connections, because you might find someone just like you.
Yes.
Anyway,
which is why supporting schools is so important. Okay, yes, we love one day.
I love them. Okay, Rachel, what's your show and tell?
Jeana, I have a great close the loop example. Are you ready?
Yes,
It has all the elements. It has like a random yes, a loose peripheral relationship, and a really beautiful outcome. Okay, so I got a LinkedIn note from a woman named Sarah, who I worked with her company years ago. And Sarah was not my primary client. She was very nice, but it has been years. She pops in my LinkedIn inbox and says, my daughter's friend works in the food industry, is trying to network and see what else is out there. Would you be willing to talk to her? So I'm like, you know what? I haven't talked to Sarah in years. I definitely don't know her daughter, nor do I know her daughter's friend, but it feels like the nice thing to do. So I go with a yes. And so I end up setting up a call with Seema, and she's wonderful. Like, she comes to the phone call with great energy. She's engaging. She's clearly bright. She's motivated. She's receptive to my ideas. She happens to also be gluten-free. We're trading restaurant recommendations. We live in roughly the same neighborhood. And it's one of those calls where you feel like, I'm happy I'm connecting with this person. I did not have a job to refer her to, but I said, you know who you should talk to is Kate at SRW, because Kate is wonderful and highly connected in food, and somebody who's very agreeable to all my intros. So I did the consensual intro thing where I checked with Kate first. I said, Seema's great. Here's her deal. Would you talk to her? Kate, being so lovely and amenable, said, yes, I will. So Seema and Kate connect. Kate invites Seema to a networking event that's going to be held at SRW. And Seema says, will you be there? I'd love to see you. I said, I won't, but I hope it's a good event. Not only was it such a good event that Seema attended, she walked away with a job. She met a company executive, and I don't know if she's publicized the job yet, but she met a company executive in the healthy food space who was really impressed with her on the spot, fast track conversations, and she is starting a brand new job there in about 2 weeks. And then she sent me a note to say, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the introductions. Here's my new job. I'm so thrilled about it. Could I take you to coffee or lunch as a thank you? I can't believe I didn't forward you the email. Maybe I was just being, protective of her identity until she started the job. But that to me is the best case study in what can happen, where somebody I was hardly in touch with asked if I would talk to somebody I'm even less connected to. I say yes, just because you never know. We have one good call. I throw in an intro. I mean, the dots, there were numerous dots to this, but I think it just really affirms our theory of life that if you follow a series of yeses and people are appreciative and amenable and good humans and well-intentioned, you can get this beautiful outcome at the end. So I wish her all the luck on her new job. We're making a lunch date. I'm very happy about it. And I just wanted to share because it's a wonderful show and tell moment.
Congratulations, Seema.
Yes. I hope you love it there.
Well, this has been an episode of The Connection Code, a podcast about friends, connections, work, and everything in between. This is a production by Two Connections, Rachel Gilman Rishel and Jeana Anderson Cohen. We both shimmied as I said that. You can follow us on Instagram, on LinkedIn, using our full names. And we would love to hear from you on either of those channels. Thanks to Laura for being here today. And thank you to Ben Cleaver for editing this podcast. Any listeners you want to shout out here at the end, Rachel?
You know what? You and I did a big thing inspired by Alicia Menendez, and we sent an email to our networks asking for a little bit of support and if people could subscribe or rate or review. We got such great feedback, and I just want to say thank you to everybody who complied and showed up for us because it has meant so much.
Thank you for complying.
Thank you for complying. And thank you, Alicia, for the nudge that we needed.
No middling here. Bye-bye.
No middling. Bye.